I see we have a more Abzan take. Um, Main deck looks pretty traditional. We have 2 Endurance, 1 Hepatra, are kind of the outliers that I see here. And as far as actually, I don't believe it is any white cards. Do you see any white cards, Billy?
No, I don't see any
Okay.
white cards there. So definitely a green black. You know, not even seeing red. I mean, sometimes you see Magus of the Moon or something like that. Just straight red green. Or red black. Oh, red black. That'd be interesting. Straight green black. So, and once again, like you mentioned, Ash plays this deck a lot. Very strong pilot. Very well-tuned list. So I'm really excited to see watch her play.
Yeah, I am as well. I used to play a good bit of Yawgmoth before I picked up Living It as well, so it's a very hard deck to play for sure.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely rewards you for knowing the lines. It looks like we're starting off with Brett on the play with a Den of the Bugbear into a Monetary Swiftspear, dealing 1 damage to Ash. It looks like Ash is going to respond with a Blooming Marsh, casting an Ignoble Hierarch on turn 1.
So really just optimal starts for both players here. I'm not sure if Krodel would consider Swiftspear his best 1-drop out of this deck. It's kind of hard to tell other than Ragavan.
Shinka's going to be the follow-up land for Brett.
Which I feel like we saw a good bit more before Kamigawa came out, because these seemed to be free. These old Kamigawa lands were more free with Ragavan.
Yeah, you saw that. I think Aspiring Spike was playing a list that was playing that as well as the black one.
Shizo?
Shizo,
It's
yeah.
the one that gives fear.
Yeah, Death Storehouse.
Yeah.
And I think obviously that both of them are very solid. Not things that have shown up a lot in Modern. It looks like that Dragon Rage Channeler followed up by a Galvanic Blast taking out the Ignoble Hierarch and an attack for 2.
So this is a really good start for Krodel. From playing on the Yawgmoth side of past, Burn was a pretty tough matchup, and Krodel has similar tools. Pressuring the life total and having cheap removal spells is usually a decent recipe versus Yawgmoth.
We usually Ash have that Yawgmoth though, which is going to be able to block, hopefully, and slow down Brett's really fast start. Brett's tapping 2 mana to dash out a Ragavan, Nimble Pilferer, and it looks like we're going to see an all-out attack here.
Yeah, it seems like an easy block for Ash on the Ragavan, but might not be, depending on her hand. Might want to keep this around as just a regular creature.
Yeah, I think
Shit looks like she's going to do.
Yeah, looks like Ash might be fetching a response here. I mean, I believe Ash does have a copy of Dryad Arbor in the deck, so maybe that is something she's planning on attacking with. But it looks like we're going to see the Yawgmoth step up and block the Ragavan. So Monkey on Wolf Violence there. That's going to be 2 points for Ash. And Yawgmoth is going to be coming back with a 1/1 counter from its Undying ability.
So I think next turn will really tell how good or bad Ash's position is here, depending on if she plays, say like a Wall of Roots or a String of Root Geist off of that. She just really wants to develop her board here, as Brett will play a light up the stage.
Yeah, it looks like putting the top card in the graveyard, but we are going to be able to get a second Dragon Rage Channeler and a Lightning Bolt off of that light up the stage. A card I personally am in love with, light up the stage. Very powerful addition to a deck like this.
Yeah, I've always been a light up the stage fan, but I think Krodel's best 1-drop in the matchup is Dragon's Rage Channeler, and he looks like he's going to have 2 because these ground creatures, as you saw, Ragavan traded with half of a Yawgmoth. So just being able to attack for 3 in the air just seems to be the best 1-drop that Krodel can present.
Looks like Ash is untapping. Waiting to see what the spell is. End of turn got an Overgrown Tomb, which is now untapped. Looks like a Beseiju is going to be the land for the turn. We're just passing it straight back to Brett.
Probably a Chord. Unfortunately, Ash drew the Dryad Arbor, at least at some point. I'm not sure if it was for turn, but it is in her hand.
Looks like Brett's going to start off the turn with a Dragon Rage Channeler. Number 2. It looks like Lightning Bolt is going to go target the Yawgmoth, get that off the board. If Ash has a Chord, it's not going to be happening in response to that Lightning Bolt. We're seeing it to surveil 2 triggers from the 2 Dragon Rage Channelers.
Yeah, and I believe Ash is only playing 1 Dryad Arbor, so we can't even chord for 0 or something like that here. So I think Ash is on quite literal nothing here.
I think we have Delirium at this point. I know we have a land, we have a creature, so there's another Dragon Rage Channel in the graveyard, and we have a sorcery in an instant. So we should be attacking for, I believe, 5 here.
Yeah, it looks like 5, and have to use a Boseiju there to sacrifice because she drew 2 and play Yawgmoth.
Hey, sometimes it's a Lotus Petal.
Yeah, unfortunately, yeah, that's the worst mode for Boseiju, as powerful as it is.
So Brett is going to untap, attack with the 2/3/3 flyers. Should be 6 damage in the air. And it looks like we have a follow-up Voldaren Epicure.
Yep.
We have the trigger coming into play, dealing 1 damage to Ash, and also creating a food token.
And at the
blood token, rather.
Key life total of 3 here, which makes both those channelers lethal, on top of many other things. So I'm not sure if Ash, I think she's probably on a no-for here. I don't think there's anything she could really do. I'm trying to think of some weird Zulaport Cutthroat Blood Artist sacrifice line here, but it seems very, very difficult.
You really see like the power of these flyers in this matchup. I mean, obviously some attacks here and there as a 1/1, but a lot of them just 3 points in the air.
Yeah, and it looks like she has okay, Yawgmoth. I may have seen a birds, but I'm not sure.
I mean, if there's a bird or 2, maybe we can slow this game down, but it looks like we are going to sacrifice the Yawgmoth, put a -1 counter on a -1/-1 counter on the Epicure, draw a card for Ash. Should also drop Ash down to 2 life.
Yep. I mean, Ash is playing on, so she thinks she could probably... There's some combination here that might buy a return.
Tapping that Overgrown Tomb now, untapping it now. Really trying to think over this play, make sure you get... This could be one of the last ones of the game. Make sure you make the right one.
Just a pass. So she does have a bird in hand, so... What does this mean? So we have a chord for a Blood Artist, and we can sacrifice a few things. I don't think that can kill both channelers.
No,
for what she has.
So Brett activates the blood token at the end of turn, discarding a Scalding Tarn, and we're gonna draw a card.
Okay.
We've got an Endurance here.
That was the card I was missing. Okay. I forgot that she played 2 in her main deck, so that'll get rid of Delirium here, and she'll just be able to block them both outright. So yeah, Ash actually still very much in this game.
That's a huge turnaround here. I mean, those flyers are definitely something I think that the green-black deck struggles with. Brett looks like it has a follow-up Urza Saga, and looks like we're going to buy into our Gigantha from our Companion Zone into Brett's hand.
So obviously Ash is still dead to a bevy of burn spells in Krodel's deck, but there's definitely a path here. And looks like she has another Yawgmoth she's going to discard to the ability to proliferate.
Interesting. Yeah, the proliferate is definitely, I'm going to guess, the mode that gets used least often on
Absolutely,
Yawgmoth.
Yeah.
But really heads up play. It looks like that Urza Saga is not going to be around much longer.
Yep. Yeah, it's very cool. I've never thought about proliferating Urza Sagas. That's a very cool line taken by Ash there.
Looks like we're going to discard another card, and we're going to tick up the Saga again. We're up to 3 counters now, so Brett's going to search for an artifact, 1 mana or less, and we're going to have that Yawgmoth get a 1/1 counter as well. And it looks like we may be going ready for attacks, but that Pirate's Bell Bomb is probably not what you want to see if you're Ash.
Yeah.
That might be the game.
Yeah, I don't think Ash already drew both of her Boseijus, so I don't think she had an out to a Pirate Spellbomb in Krodel's deck. So just kind of had to hope it wasn't there. Obviously, Krodel's deck is not a known entity.
Mm-hmm.
So definitely seemed like the right thing to do. Just unfortunately, the Pirate Spellbomb was in Krodel's deck.
Well, that looks like we're going to be going into game number 2 with Brett up 1 game for right now. Let's start looking at the sideboard here, because this deck, once again, is a little newer. So if you are even someone who is very heavily entrenched in the modern format, this might be a deck you just have not seen yet. And obviously, we have some things that are, I think, kind of interesting here out of the sideboard. We've got a couple copies of Shattering Spree, some Orvar the All Form, a couple copies of Void Mirror, Alpine Moon. We obviously have Giganta as the partner or companion. I've been playing a lot of EDH. We also do have a copy of Soul Guide and Lantern, Relic of Progenitus, Shadow Spear, Underworld Breach, Pirate Spellbomb, and a Pithing Needle. What out of the sideboard are you interested in bringing in this matchup versus Yawgmoth?
So the Pithy Needle was screaming to me, obviously, being Gadolf Saga, name Yawgmoth, among other things. He might want to go to some amount of Relic Soul Guide Lantern thing, but his plan A might be good enough where he might not want to trim a lot of cards. But I could see out of Krodel that his bad cards are actually kind of like Ragavan and these Epicure, Bomat Courier things that are on the ground. So I think he'll actually have enough room. He might even want to turn into like a full burn deck and bring in this Breach as well if he feels like all these creatures are terrible. And this Pirate Spellbomb also could be pretty good.
It's always interesting having Breach in the sideboard. It's a card I'm so used to being the focus of a deck. And here it really is just an addition, right? It's a way to get card advantage. It's a way to create a better board for yourself, but it's not necessarily the thing you're trying to do with your plan A.
Yeah. It's just a fair card that he's just gonna, flash back a lightning bolt 3 or 4 times. That's kind of really, we've seen a lot of decks use that as the mode of Underworld Breach to good effect. It doesn't need to be a card that wins the game on the spot, per se.
And let's transition over to Ash's sideboard. And once again, I think this is a deck we're more familiar with. We do have 3 copies of Veil of Summer, 3 copies of Thoughtseize, 2 copies of Chalice of the Void, 2 copies of Endurance, 2 copies of Force of Vigor, and then we also have an Obstinate Baloth, Haywire Might, and Torpor Orb. What are you interested in bringing in here if you're Ash?
So the Endurances seem pretty good. Not only doing Underworld Breach stuff, but actually the 3/4 body with Flash actually seems pretty good. I'm interested in Chalice of the Void. I think this is mostly for Cascade decks, but Krodel does have a lot of 1-mana cards where we could just see it being played the fair way, I suppose. Obstinate Baloth would be a nice one up just to gain some life, and probably the Haywire Might as well. I could see.
Yeah,
so decent amount of tools.
Yeah, for sure. There's a lot of artifacts in that, in obviously the mono red Affinity deck. So Haywire Might actually could be something that could be meaningful, right? Exiling a synthesizer or a Mishra's map or whatever.
Yeah, I like the Naturalize if we're going to board it in as being a core target. I don't think I'm as interested in Force of Vigor. I'm not sure that that's what the game is about. I think Ash still wants to kill Krodel as fast as she can. So, yeah, I don't think I would be too interested in Force of Vigor because I think there's so many cards you want to board in already. Especially if you're boarding in Chalice. I don't think I'd be interested in Force of Vigor.
No, I think Chalice does a lot of work here. Excited to see how Ash actually sideboards. It looks like we are mulliganing again here.
Yeah, is that a 5?
I think we're going down to 5 now.
Jeez.
Hoping at least being on the play for Ash, I think gives you an advantage in this matchup. But you obviously need to be able to cast your spells.
Yeah, and if Krodel did the opposite of what I thought, which is keeping maybe a lot of these 1-drops, there's definitely a chance that Ash can steal this one here. Like if Krodel has a draw of like a bunch of Ragavans and a bunch of Swift Spears, and then Ash plays, say, a bunch of Walrus, Jengaroo guys, and I think that's a way to get your card advantage back.
Yeah, you definitely mentioned this before. There's so many good blockers in that Abzan deck, or the Abzan deck, the green-black deck, that it really does stymie that kind of ground assault you can get from the red deck. So, I mean, maybe that's what Ash is trying to mulligan for.
Yeah. Yeah, I think she just needs one of her clunky 2-drops to say that just blocks really well.
Looks like Ash has found a hand that she's happy with. Looked like we at least saw Birds of Paradise going back, which is, I think, something that you maybe can't cut all of, but not fantastic in a deck that's dealing 1 point of damage here and 2 damage there. Looks like we're keeping a Bezeju and an Ignoble Hierarch to start the game.
Yeah, and I think the 1-drops are also better on the play because even if they get bolted, at least Krodel's not developing something. So you're still kind of ahead. So I don't think you can really afford to cut many of these, Birds of Paradise, Ignoble Hierarch type cards.
Brett is going to follow up with a Wooded Foothills Fetch, get a basic Mountain, and it looks like we see a Galvanic Blast knocking that Ignoble Hierarch off the board.
However, since Ash is on a Multi 5, I think Krodel is much more incentivized to kill all the mana dorks that he sees.
Absolutely. trying to make sure you're not getting run over by a short hand, but a powerful hand still.
Yes.
It looks like Ash is going to be untapping using a Verdant Catacomb to get a swamp and playing a Wall of Roots.
Yeah, I think this is... It's weird to say that Wall of Roots is one of your best cards in the matchup, but I think it is kind of one of the keys here. And we see Krodel want a one-lander here.
Ooh. Yeah, plays a Dragon Rage Channeler and passes the turn back.
I think we easily could have a game here.
Yeah, I think there definitely is a lot of incentive. Ash fetches a Verdant Catacomb and finds the third land to keep those one-landers as the red deck, but it looks like it might be punishing for Brett here.
Yeah. And I'm at least happy that Krodel, if he's going to keep a one-lander and he's going to have threats, the first one he develops is Dragon's Rage Channeler. But we're going to see Yawgmoth here from Ash, which is going to be very, very good.
Yeah, turn 3 Yawgmoth after a mulligan to 5 cards, being able to finish that off.
Yeah, being aggressive here, taking that Dragon Rage Channeler right out right now.
Brett's going to untap, draw a card.
I think that was a good call by Ash because Krodel just drew a Mishra's Bauble, so Delirium could have been active very, very easily just by one card.
It looks like we see a Voldaren Epicure come into play. We're going to deal 1 damage to Ash and also make a blood token. And like you mentioned before, there's that Mishra's Bauble. We're going to look at the top card of Ash's library and pass the turn, draw a card during the upkeep for Brett.
I believe Brett did pick up a land there, so he'll be able to play it next turn.
If there is a next turn.
If there is a next turn, that is very true.
Yeah, we're seeing Yawgmoth from Ash. Put a counter on that Yawgmoth from the Undying. Draw a card from Yawgmoth.
Yeah, even though Ash was on a Mold 5, she is definitely in the driver's seat now.
We see 3 lands tapped. We, in addition to that Yawgmoth, now have a Wall of Roots and an Ignoble Hierarch, and we're going to see Yawgmoth go into the red zone. Attack for 2.
So we don't have double Undying creature to draw as many cards as we'd like, but this is still very, very powerful.
Second land for Brett at least makes this more of a less of a non-game, and we see a Shrapnel Blast, sacrificing that blood token that the Epicure made the turn previous to, I think, target.
I would imagine it's targeting the Yawgmoth, yeah.
I would have to imagine.
Which is, I think Ash is going to draw a bunch of cards in response here.
Yeah, we see a sacrifice of the Ignoble Hierarch, a removing counter from the Yawgmoth, and then sacrificing Yawgmoth to draw another card. And it looks like we might also see the Wall of Roots going away as well. Removing a counter from the Yawgmoth again, drawing a card, and maybe one more sacrifice here.
Yeah. It looks like she found another Yawgmoth, so I think now that she's found that, she wants to keep the Yawgmoth at its normal 1/1 self.
Yeah, really powerful turn for Ash. I mean, taking that Shrapnel Blast and being able to really make it into something beneficial here. I think both players have, 6 or 7 cards at this point. And, the fact that Ash was on a mulligan to 5 can't really tell anymore.
Yeah, we can't really tell at all. And I do like she did sacrifice all of her Wall of Roots, and I think that was the right thing to do because her bottleneck here isn't mana at all. It was just the amount of cards in her hand. She needed to find Yawgmoth as soon as she could.
So Yawgmoth comes into play. We see a tapped land and an attack for 1 with the Yawgmoth. Brett's going to untap, play a 1-mana Dragon Rage Channeler, which I don't believe is Delirious at this point. I believe we have...
Might be. So we have an artifact, we have a land, we have a creature, we have an instant.
Oh, so I think that is Delirious then. So a 3/3 Dragon Rage Channeler coming into play. We see an untap from Ashlen as she starts her turn. How will she respond to a 3/3 Dragon Rage Channeler from Brett?
Yeah, I would be surprised if we saw any attack before doing some Yawgmoth activations. She doesn't want to say, run into the Dragon's Rage Channeler, having them bounce off and have the Yawgmoth get bolted or Galvanic Blasted or something.
Well, the funny part is that Yawgmoth does pro-humans.
Oh,
so
geez, yeah.
We're going to be able to make that attack.
I always forget that is pro-humans. Yep.
That is the third ability that nobody knows.
Yeah, that's actually I think the least used. I think the Proliferate is probably used a little bit more.
For sure. We do see Ash tap a forest to play a Birds of Paradise. a swamp is going to be tapped for a Haywire Might.
Okay.
And it looks like we might be preparing to go into the red zone. Ash with 3 mana untapped right now, and it looks like 1 card left in hand.
Yeah, she's definitely taking a pause on this. Makes me feel like, I don't know, the last card would be core. She's probably just thinking about if she should do any activations, but the Yawgmoth is coming in, so that makes me feel like she's gonna activate Yawgmoth on the. She pointed out what I forgot, which is that's pro humans.
Yes.
So this attack, I think it means that she's gonna use the Yawgmoth to make the Dragon's Rage Channeler smaller anyway, so might as well get in a free attack, see how Krodel would block.
Looks like both players are taking a tank here before we finalize blocks. It looks like we're going to see a sacrifice of the Yawgmoth to the Yawgmoth to bring that back with Undying.
The last card is a cord.
It is.
So we're doing it for a total of 3. And Krodel has a response. Maybe a bolt on the Yawgmoth, which doesn't really do a whole lot because we can at least reset it with Yawgmoth with one of our sacrificing one of our other creatures.
Yeah, it looks like we're going to see exactly what you said. We're going to see that Might die to Yawgmoth, remove a counter from Yawgmoth. Brett's going to put that Galvanic Blast into the graveyard. We see Yawgmoth come back with Undying. Now it is a 2/2 again. And it looks like we're going to be searching our library for a card with converted mana cost 3 or less. We're going to remove the graveyard with Endurance. So let's shuffle those bad boys back up. We'll put those into the bottom of the deck.
Yeah, and I like this a lot from Ash. Another Undying creature doesn't like it allows you to draw a bunch of cards, right? But I think her bottleneck at this point is her life total, and she doesn't really want to have the opportunity to draw that many cards. And it also kills the Dragon's Rage Channeler on top of it, which is great.
Yes, that's huge. Now we've got an empty board for Brett. 2 lands versus 5 lands and 4 creatures. Brett definitely has an uphill climb as he taps a mountain, and it looks like we're going to have another 1-drop creature. I mean, obviously this deck is full of them. It looks like we are going to have. I think Brett's debating what they want to do, and pack it up instead.
See you later. I think he had a relic in his hand, and he's like, you know what? I'm just not going to show this relic. This game is kind of a lost cause.
Yeah, and we see the game number 2 go to Ash Johnson. Once again, off a mulligan to 5. I mean, that was a very aggressive mulligan trying to find a hand that's playable, and it seems like it worked out for Ash.
Yeah, and maybe Krodel didn't mulligan enough. He kept a 1-lander, and he bricked for a few turns. So, I mean, I don't know what Krodel kept, but kind of a tale of 2 players. You know, one decided their hand was bad and mulligan until they saw a much more aggressive hand, which I think you need to keep in this matchup.
Yeah, I think there's playing any of those red decks. I mean, like once you hit 2 lands, you're usually good. And you keeping a 1-lander on the draw with some ability to create pressure seems like something you'd want to do, but obviously it does have repercussions.
Yep. Yeah, sometimes you brick and you die, even if your opponent mulligans a 5. So, I think we see any. Do you think Ash would change anything based off of what she saw? Because obviously Krodel's deck isn't that much of a known entity. I don't think so. I think a lot of her cards are pretty linear versus, say, a red deck.
Yeah, I don't think we saw anything that would make Ash want to bring in like a Torpor Orb or a Thoughtseize or Veil Summer, right? So I think we're going to see probably the same configurations for game 3 here.
Yeah. I'm just very interested if the Chalices are in the deck. I could see it 50-50 either way. I could see them, maybe she just wants to focus on her gameplay and especially on the play. That's maybe on the draw. Maybe is a card you go to a Chalice of the Void because you're behind. But outside of that, I don't think there's too much. Let's look at Krodel's deck list. I think he's roughly in the same boat. Not really too much difference on play versus draw.
Yeah, nothing super powerful here. I do wonder if you're. Oh, it looks like we're starting game number 3 here. Brett is starting off with a Wooded Foothills fetching a mountain, and you got to imagine Brett has a turn 1 spell to start this game off, and it looks like Brett decided we're going to start off with a Ragavan Nimble Pilferer.
Okay. Yeah, it's very interesting of Krodel's. I think Krodel's sideboarding is a lot more interesting than Ash's because he has a lot of cards that are okay, but he also has a lot of these creatures that could be bad. But on the play, Ragavan seems a lot more appealing, which maybe is something that he did. He put in Ragavans back in on the play and took them out on the draw.
So Brett has a turn 2 Galvanic Blast to take away Ash's turn 1 Ignoble Hierarch. Ragavan's going to be able to rumble in for 2, make a treasure token, exile, and now befriend the lovely Ignoble Hierarch. And also we're going to see a Urza Saga come into play, as well as a Soul Guide Lantern.
Huge turn for Brett. I think that's the best hit off of Ragavan, off of Ash's deck for Krodel too. Just an extra source of red mana, plus extra damage here and there.
Ash is going to untap that Blooming Marsh. Trying to find something to affect this board. Once again, an early Ragavan applies a lot of pressure. I'm interested to see how Ash is going to respond.
And just so everyone knows, this is Al Central Games. This is the modern RCQ here, and we have a 2-slotter we're playing for. We have 48 players, and it's also a 2K. In here in round 3, we're going to have 6 rounds of Swiss, then a cut to top 8.
We see Ash here with a Bethesda taking out that Urza Saga. Looks like we're going to be able to get... So we might have a small question here. Bethesda is going to take out the Urza Saga. We're going to fetch out a Mountain if we're Brett. And Painful Way, I mean, that was off a Nurturing Peatland, so Ash does take 1 damage from that, in addition to the 2 damage from the Ragavan hit.
Yeah, I think that's a lot of bad signs from Ash. Not only do you have to do it off a Peatland, which means it's probably one of your last hands in hand, or there are more Peatlands, which is, you're taking more damage. But if your best thing to do is just getting rid of an Urza Saga while Krodel still goes crazy with Ragavan and all these other cards, that's a really bad sign, I think.
So we see Ragavan rumble in with Exalted from the Ignoble Hierarch. So that should be another 3 points. Exiling, an Endurance would have been a really good hit for Ash.
Yeah.
That should
We
not
can cast that.
I can cast it. And it looks like we might be casting it. So that should put Ash down to 14 at this point. Brett's still at 19. And we also see a light up the stage. I mean, things are really rolling for Brett.
Yeah, you can't really draw it up any better. And we do see a Dragon's Race Channeler and I think an Epic here among the cards.
Yes, we do. And the Dragon Race Channeler is going to come into play here.
Yeah, I'm not sure how Ash gets out of this one.
I don't think without a loss. I think it's kind of where we're at right now.
She almost proved me wrong game 1. I said the same thing and then I forgot about Endurance. But at this point, we're going to need some Port Sweeper that doesn't exist, I think, in her deck.
Yeah, if someone can pull it off, it is definitely Ash.
Yes, yeah.
We see an Overgrown Tomb coming into play untapped, knocking it down to 12. And it looks like we're passing the turn back.
So this could mean Cord for 0 for Dryad Arbor. Trying to figure out what else this could mean.
Could be an Endurance.
Yeah, could be an Endurance.
Brett's going to untap, looking at 3 cards in hand, 3 lands in the battlefield, as well as 4 creatures. Don't believe we have we actually do have Delirium, I believe. Land, I think we have an sorcery and an instant and an enchantment because of the Urza Saga.
Yep. It's going away.
Yeah, we see the Endurance come into play, get rid of that graveyard, go from 4 to 0 very quickly. And now we have a pretty profitable block, I think, for Ash. Which are you going to block here?
Probably the Ragavan, yeah. It's pretty close because I think the Dragon's Rage Chandler might be the problem that's worse for you long term.
Mm-hmm.
But I think if you're Ash, you might just have to hope that Krodel doesn't have a lot, which means that he can't get Delirium back because she's already so far behind.
So casting Endurance puts you down to 11. Another, looks like 4 points here should knock Ash down to 7. And it looks like we have a follow-up here. Brett is going to be casting that, the Voldaren Epicure, dealing 1 damage to Ash, knocking her down to 6, making a blood token, adding more pressure to the board. And also, it looks like we're going to see a Mishra's Bauble as well. Let's get 2 Delirium triggers for our DRCs, and we are very quickly on our way back up to Delirium here as we mill in a land, and it looks like a creature.
Yeah, it was another Epicure. We're pretty much 1 card type away. with say Mishra's Bauble already in the graveyard, if you would assume that.
We see Ash untap, play a Swamp.
Bailoff will play really well here. Okay.
Wow, a Bailoff is a huge play. Absolutely. Gaining 4 life, making a 4/4 blocker. This is a way to turn this game around where Ash is back up to 9 points, losing 1 from the Nurturing Peatland, but being at 9 life, we still got more game here.
And we still have this Endurance in place, so Krodel's got to be careful with if he wants Delirium or not. He targets Ash with the Bauble with a fetch land in play, which is kind of interesting. But he's got to be careful, make sure they're not delirious before he can say trade a DRC and like a bolt effect with the Endurance, or just get the Endurance off the table completely before he adds an extra card type to the graveyard.
Definitely something you need to keep track of. It looks like we're going to cycle that Soul Guide Lantern.
So that'll give us that. So the thing too is he has 2 channelers, so he can't just attack with 1 and get exalted. They both have to come in.
Yeah, so you're not going to be attacking with a 4/4. It's either going to be 2 3/3s or 2 1/1s.
Yeah. I guess never mind. I forgot. The Mishra's Bauble was the 3rd type, so he still has 3 types. It's a artifact, a land, and creature.
Okay, so if a sorcery or instinct comes into the graveyard, we're going to have Delirium. But until then, Brett's going to untap, play a Monetary Swift Spear. It looks like we have another follow-up here. It's going to be a Galvanic Blast going straight for Ash's face. Don't have the Metalcraft here. We only have 1 artifact on the battlefield currently, but still dealing an extra couple points, getting the Delirium active for your Dragon Rage channelers, and also giving you the prowess trigger for the Monetary Swift Spear. Looks like we're going to have a full-out attack here.
Yeah, I believe if Krodel has a bolt from my math, he wins here. So Endurance is going to be blocked by Bailoff. Ash's Endurance is going to block a Channeler. We have 3, 4, 5, 6 right now, putting Ash to 3 on board.
Looks like it's going to be, if life totals are correct right now, it should be 6 damage, and that should put Ash to 1.
Oh, yes, because, okay, she's at 7.
7.
Correct. Okay. Yes.
So we do see that Endurance eat up that Dragon Rage Channeler. Nom nom. We see that Endurance hit the graveyard, back where it belongs. See a fetch land from Brett, and it be the other Galvanic Blast.
Yep, that'll do it.
So Brett wins this round 3 feature match, 2 games to 1, playing Mono Red Affinity over Green Black Yawgmoth. I mean, honestly, great gameplay from Ash. I think that game 2 really shows how talented she is with the strategy. But really could not stop that onslaught from Brett, especially in game 3.